The first sound was not an alarm. It was a soft, steady thump that only a mechanic would notice, the rhythm of a pump fighting air in its line. Jack's Armitage lay on his back inside a maintenance crawl on Kepler's rest station, shoulders wedged under a heat exchanger, palms slick with coolant. The pump's beat told him the station had taken a small pressure dip somewhere near Dock 6. The station said everything was fine. The pump said otherwise. Jax trusted the pump. He tightened a valve, wiped his hands, and slid out into a long, bright corridor where 3 species passed by without a glance. A pair of Zapirians flowed past in iridescent robes, their crystal-sheened skin shifting calm blue-green. A molten worlder, all dark stone plates and faint lines of orange lava glow, carried a crate like it weighed nothing. A gas being of the cloud nebula drifted in a pressure harness like a silver balloon, its voice a musical hum. Jax nodded to each. Nobody nodded back. People on Kepler's rest were polite but careful around him. He was taller than most. He had a face you could read in one glance, human if you believed in humans, most didn't. To them he was just baseline biped, a rare genetic offshoot, a curiosity with strong hands and old scars. It was easier that way. He never corrected them. A chime rippled through the deck. Council session to begin in 20 minutes. All representatives please proceed to the Grand Hall. Jax flinched. The chime hit a memory that lived in the bones, parade grounds, inspection lines, a voice saying, "Eyes front, shipmate." Jax breathed out and shook it away. He wasn't a shipmate anymore, not for a long time. Jax, a voice like bells. He turned. Deadl hurried up the corridor on quick feet, her Zapirian skin poolsing warm gold, a sign of relief. Deadl worked in comms, a junior linguist with a bad habit of staying cheerful. She wore the short jacket of station staff and a band at her wrist that flashed with live tasks. "You forgot your badge again," she said, pressing the thin disc into his palm. "The sensors think you're a crate of parts when you walk past." "Could be worse," Jax said. "They could think I'm a spill." Deadl's skin sparkled, Zapirian laughter. "You and your jokes. Are you fixing Dock 6? We have a pressure anomaly, but environmental says it's intolerance." "It's not," Jax said. "Give me 10 minutes. "You always say 10. Her skin shifted to a gentle turquoise concern. She lowered her voice. "My mother's batch is on Proxima B their night shift. Have you heard anything from the miners' union?" Jax paused. The pump thumped again in his head. "Not since last week," he said. "I'll ping the union after I check the line." Deadl nodded, but the gold had drained from her skin. She lifted her wristband, typed a quick message with 6-fingered grace, and then squared her shoulders. "I'm needed in the hall. Dr. Keithmose is presenting her artifact report." "The black metal?" Jax asked without thinking. Deadl blinked. "You've heard." "People talk to the guy who fixes their air," Jax said. "Break a pipe, you learn secrets." Deadl's skin warmed again, amusement overlaying worry. "Come by the viewport later. I'll bring starfruit tea. It helps with thoughts." He watched her hurry away, then headed for Dock 6. The pump had not lied. A hairline fracture in a recirc manifold bled vapor so thin the deck sensors missed it. Jax cut the line, patched the crack, and reset the pump. The thump steadied to a healthy hum. As he worked, the overhead displays in the bay looped their usual comfort: 6 centuries of peace, 12 species in harmony, trade is life, violence is a story from long ago. Jax snorted under his breath and pulled his hands free. The deck trembled, just enough for his fingertips to feel. Not a quake, not a ship docking. He felt the way the tremor rolled through the structure, the way temperature shifted by a fraction. It was as if the station had flinched. Then the sound came. Not a siren, not yet. A ripple through the local network first, the kind of silent message that makes other systems look up. Jax's badge vibrated against his chest. Priority Council alert. He wiped coolant on a rag and jogged for the lift. By the time he reached the Grand Hall, the air was tight with fear. Representatives filed to their seats with forced dignity. The Starborn Admiralty stood at attention, silver skin and night-black eyes catching the light. Elder Morton of the Hegemony, tall, time-worn, sat with his hands folded as if gripping an invisible staff. Dr. Keithmose stood at the center dais, a small case open before her. Inside lay a shard of metal so dark it seemed to swallow the light around it. Even from the back of the hall, Jax felt the wrongness of it, like a pressure behind the eyes. Keithmose's voice was steady. "We have cataloged 207 fragments in the Sol sector. Composition, unknown. Density, extreme. Behavior, adaptive. It interferes with our instruments as if it knows it is being watched. A wave of murmurs. Captain the Zara of the Molten Worlds leaned forward, her volcanic eyes hot. It is a relic from a primitive culture, curios, nothing more. Elder Morton spoke without rising, his voice carried anyway. You told yourselves legends fade when not fed, but legends that walk are called history. His ancient gaze found the shard. My people have a name for the ones who tempered iron with blood and rode fire between the stars. The hall grew very still. They were called humans. The word fell like a stone into deep water. Some laughed softly, trying to sound brave. Others looked away as if the name itself might cut. Jax felt the past stir like a sleeping animal. Admiral Zexathura lifted a hand. Elder, the Federation recognizes your scholarship, but there is no evidence of a present human civilization. Evidence goes missing, Morton said. Eyes choose not to see. The chime that followed was not a council chime. It was a station alarm, a clear, rising tone that said, stop what you are doing and listen. The walls of the hall unfurled into a holographic viewport, a live feed from deep space sensors. Kepler's rest hung like a silver wheel above a blue gas giant, its rings bright with traffic. Beyond, cold stars burned, and then against the black, shadows moved. At first they looked like the absence of light, edges that didn't reflect, shapes that hurt to outline. Then the feed adjusted and the shapes became ships, angular, predatory, moving in perfect formation. A voice came over every frequency the station had, spoken in a language that wasn't in the Federation's list, and yet the words arrived in the mind, clean as truth. Terran colonial fleet to all stations. Do not panic, do not resist. Evacuate the outer rim within 30 cycles. This is your only warning, we are coming home. The hall erupted, shout, denial, prayer. The feed zoomed on the lead ship, 3 kilometers of dark geometry, a luminous ring at the stern vomiting pale fire. A jump drive ring, Jax thought, though no one had used rings in 1,000 years. Sensors tried to paint target boxes and failed. The ships ate the paint. Zexathura's voice cut the noise. All defense officers to stations, secure civilian docks, lock down traffic lanes. Admiral Keithmo said, voice shaking now, please look at the tin. Her words vanished under a new sound, not from the hall, from Jax's badge. He pressed it to his ear. Static. Then a voice that found him through 3 layers of encryption the Federation didn't know existed. Armitage. His legs went weak. He hadn't heard that voice in years. Firm, calm, carrying the authority of hard vacuum and hot metal. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, the voice said. By old oath and living burden you are recalled to duty. Report to Dock Epsilon. Bring no one, do not be seen. The line went dead. Jack stood in the roar of a civilized galaxy, learning how thin its peace really was. He looked up at the fleet that ate the light. He pressed his thumb into the badge until pain steadied him. He had hidden for so long that hiding felt like breathing. The station's air tasted suddenly too sweet. T-Vel's voice broke through on an open channel, high with fear. Jax, are you seeing this? My mother's batch, there, Jax, where are you? He almost answered. He almost told her the truth he'd cut out of himself. Instead, he whispered to no one, I'm sorry. He turned and ran. Dock Epsilon lay behind locked bulkheads and quiet corridors. It was a forgotten arm of the station, where rough cargo came and went without ceremony. Jax's hands moved by memory, override panel, lift latch, bridge the sensor. He slipped through and sealed the door behind him. The dock was empty except for a small courier craft the Federation would have called obsolete. Jax knew better. The hull looked like dull ceramic. The edges were all wrong. It sat like a crouched animal that had learned patience. The ramp lowered as he approached. A woman waited in the light. Human. Gray hair cut short, lines at the eyes that spoke of sleepless years. Uniform plain, rank unreadable unless you understood that rank was not for ceremony but for load-bearing. Jax, she said, you took your time. He stopped 3 steps from her. The smell of recycled air, metal, oil. The weight of history, like a hand on the back of his neck, pressing him forward. Ma'am, he said. I told you never to call me that unless we were dying, she said, and for a heartbeat her mouth softened. Then the softness was gone. We don't have long. The Council will seal this arm when they realize it exists. Do you still know how to fly without a computer telling you which way is forward? Jax looked past her into the little ship. Stick, pedals, manual gauges, a display that showed a diagnostic in old Terran script that made his chest ache. "I remember," he said. She studied him. "You've been playing harmless," she said quietly. "Fixing air, drinking bad tea, you chose peace. I respect that, but peace is not the same as safety." He thought of T-Vel's skin flushing gold when she laughed. He thought of the way the station trembled when the shadows appeared. "Why now?" he asked. "Because they forgot we could come back," Admiral Chen said. "Because there are worse things than us moving in the dark. Because we asked the Federation to withdraw and they won't. Because we move populations before we burn infrastructure, and we need hands that can make an ancient engine sing." "You want me to help you take people," he said. "I want you to help me save them," she replied. "Before the first real war in 600 years begins by accident." Jax closed his eyes. The silence between heartbeats was a deep well. A mechanic can make a pump lie down and purr, his first chief had told him. A pilot can make a ship tell the truth. He opened his eyes. "Who's flying the second seat?" "You are," said another voice from inside the ship. He knew that voice, too. It belonged to a woman with smoke-dark hair and a scar at her jaw where a shard of glass had introduced itself during a bad re-entry. Myra Cade, once his crewmate, once his captain, once, for a thin slice of stolen time, the person he'd almost let himself love. She stepped into the ramp light with a crooked smile. "Hi, Armitage, try not to stall on takeoff." Something in his chest that had been braced for years shifted. He looked from Myra to Admiral Chen to the shadowed stars beyond the dock mouth. The station alarms climbed to a new pitch. Across the hallways and markets and gardens of Kepler's Rest, people began to run. "Choose," Admiral Chen said. Jack stepped forward, into the ship that smelled like memory and ozone. The ramp began to rise. A shadow moved at the far end of the dock. "Stop that vessel," a voice commanded, sharp and cold. Two Harmony Directorate officers in gray stepped into view, weapons leveled, and behind them a third figure in a long mantle, Director Calix Var, the man who wrote the rules for peace and called it law. His eyes locked on Jack's. "There," Calix said, triumphant, "the human." For 6 centuries, peace had meant rules. Rules written into the very air of the Federation. You could not raise a weapon without 3 separate authorizations. You could not fly without full computer oversight. And above all, no being was allowed to conceal their true identity. That was why Director Calix Var was smiling now, his long mantle swirling as he stepped into Dock Epsilon. His voice carried the steel edge of triumph. "Proof," he said. "For generations we suspected. The myths were more than myths, and now, standing before me," his hand slashed through the air, the last ghost of a barbaric species thought long extinct. A human. Jax froze on the ramp, muscles wound tight. He could feel Myra tense beside him, her hand hovering close to the cockpit hatch. Admiral Chen didn't flinch, her gray eyes fixed on Calix with the calm of someone who had been stared at by worse. "You should not be here, Director," Chen said. "This dock is sealed by old treaty." Calix's smile widened. "Old treaties? You humans love those, don't you? Treaties broken when convenient, wars disguised as protection. Do you think I haven't studied your kind? The legend said you thrived on lies as much as blood." The officers at his side raised their rifles, Federation pulse weapons designed to stun, not kill. "Surrender the fugitive," Calix said, "or I will broadcast his genetic scan to every council chamber in orbit. You'll have nowhere to hide." Myra muttered under her breath, "Same snake, new skin, they never change." Jax's throat felt tight. The Federation had been his refuge. He had hidden here, playing the harmless mechanic while they told stories about humans like children whispering ghost tales. But now every eye would see what he was. Admiral Chen lifted her chin. "Director Var, if you think you've trapped us, you don't yet understand the difference between your peace and our survival." The dock trembled as the courier's engines spooled up. Old engines. Engines Jax knew in his bones. The ship seemed to wake under his feet, hungry for motion. "Stop them," Calix barked. Blue-white pulses lanced across the dock, sizzling against the courier's shields. Myra grabbed Jax's wrist. "Cockpit, now." For a moment, Jax hesitated. He saw T-Vel's face in his mind, her skin shimmering with warmth when she laughed, her voice soft when she asked about her mother's batch on Proxima B. If Calix's words spread, she'd know. They'd all know. No hiding anymore. but the ramp shuddered upward, sealing the dock. The hum of the ship deepened to a roar, and Jax felt something he hadn't let himself feel in years, the sharp, electric clarity of being needed. He ran with Myra into the cockpit. The controls looked impossibly familiar. Two worn grips, pedals scarred by boots, gauges that flickered in Terran standard, fuel ready, engine hot, weapons safe. Jax slid into the pilot's seat. Myra dropped into second with practiced ease, strapping herself in. Admiral Chen stood behind them, one hand braced on the bulkhead. "Dock clamps releasing," Myra reported. "Shields at 50, hull integrity green." Jax's hands closed over the controls. His heartbeat slowed. Manual override engaged. The courier lifted like a hawk, shrugging its wings. Dock Epsilon fell away in a blur. Warning lights streaked as Federation patrol craft swung toward them. Voices screamed on open channels, "Unauthorized vessel, power down or be disabled." Jax pulled the stick left, punched the throttle. The courier knifed through the patrol line, faster than it had any right to be. Federation ships twisted to follow, but their maneuvering computers stuttered, confused by the courier's wild arcs. Jax flew by instinct, by feel, the way humans always had. Myra grinned despite herself. "You still fly like a lunatic." "Better than flying like a corpse," Jax muttered. Behind them, Kepler's rest shrank against the stars. The sensor feed flickered with the fleet still waiting at the edge of the system, black ships, silent, moving like predators. The sight punched air from Jax's lungs. They weren't myths. They were here. Admiral Chen's voice was steady. "Set course for the Sol sector. We rendezvous with the Vanguard." "The what?" Jax asked. "You'll see." Back on Kepler's rest, Dock Epsilon filled with smoke and fury. Director Calix Var brushed soot from his mantle, eyes burning as he watched the courier vanish into the void. The officers at his side trembled, but his smile had returned. "Perfect," he whispered. "The Council will believe me now. Humanity lives, and they are here to destroy us." He turned toward the nearest comm pillar. "Patch me to the full Council. Prepare a security broadcast across all 12 species. I want every world to see the face of their nightmare." The hollows lit around him, 12 species watching, waiting. Calix's voice thundered through the galaxy. "Federation citizens, the ancient enemy walks among us. Humanity has returned, and they come not as friends, but as conquerors." In the courier's cockpit, alarms chimed. Myra swore. "Open broadcast, system-wide." Jax stared at the comm display. His own image, his face, scarred and human, was already spreading through the networks. Every world, every colony, every child raised on 6 centuries of peace was staring at the thing they'd been taught could not exist. Chen's hand settled on his shoulder. Strong, steady. "Now you understand," she said softly. "This isn't just war, it's the war for what the galaxy chooses to believe about us." Outside, the stars stretched as the courier's engines tore, open a path to the dark. And far behind them, 12 peaceful civilizations began to panic. The courier's hull screamed as it tore free of normal space. Stars blurred, bent, and then snapped back into place. Silence settled inside the cockpit, the kind that only came after a hard burn. Jax's fingers ached on the controls, but the ship held steady, drifting through the Sol sector's shadow. "Coordinates locked," Myra said, her voice steady but tight. "We're clear." Admiral Chen leaned over her shoulder, scanning the readouts. "Not clear enough. Calix will spin your face into a weapon before the day ends. By now, half the Federation sees you as proof of every nightmare they ever denied." Jax stared at the black between stars. They always wanted a monster, now they've got one. Chen's voice softened just slightly. "You're not the monster, Armitage, you're the reminder." Before he could answer, alarms whispered across the console. Myra's scarred jaw clenched. "Contacts, a dozen signatures at extreme range." The main display flickered, then shapes emerged. Not Federation patrols. These were different. They moved like hunting beasts, angles all wrong, light bending off their hulls. Each ship carried a ring of fire at the stern, jump drives, massive and archaic, yet impossibly alive. The sight stole Jax's breath. "Are those?" "The Vanguard," Chen said simply. "The first fleet we built in exile, the ones who kept the watch while the rest of the galaxy forgot." The courier shuddered as a transmission cut across all channels. The voice was low, sharp, and human. "Courier 7 Black, identify pilot." Jax licked his lips. Jack's Armitage, former mechanic Kepler's rest station, recalled to duty by Admiral Sarah Chen. There was a long pause, then welcome home. The fleet surrounded them as they entered formation. Dozens of ships, each one angular and dangerous, bristling with weapons that Federation sensors wouldn't even recognize. Some were small as gunboats, others massive carriers, their hulls shifting as if alive. Jax guided the courier into a hangar that swallowed them whole. The moment they touched down, the deck crew swarmed, humans in dark uniforms, movements fast, precise, nothing wasted. Their eyes were sharp, their faces marked by the weight of too many years in the void. As the ramp lowered, the air smelled of oil, ozone, and recycled sweat. The hangar hummed with purpose. Jack stepped out and felt the ground vibrate under his boots. This was no Federation dock, soft and clean. This was a place built for survival. A man approached, tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped hair gone to gray. His uniform bore no ornament, but the weight of command was in every step. He stopped before Chen and snapped a salute. "Fleetmaster Rourke," Chen introduced. He kept the fire lit when others would have let it die. Rourke's eyes narrowed on Jax. This him, the one who hid among them. Jax met his gaze unflinching. "I fixed their pipes, I kept their air flowing, I stayed alive." "Alive," Rourke repeated, voice rough. "While the Federation grew soft, while they forgot what blood costs." He turned to Chen. "He'd better be worth it." Myra bristled, stepping forward. "He's worth more than half this hangar, Rourke. He flies like he was born with steel in his veins." For the first time, the corner of Rourke's mouth twitched. "We'll see." They were led deeper into the ship, through corridors alive with activity. Pilots in worn suits checked weapons. Engineers adjusted glowing cores that pulsed like hearts. Children darted between them, carrying tools, learning trades by doing. Jax's chest tightened. These weren't just soldiers, they were families, a civilization carved from steel and fire. In the command hall, holographic displays filled the air. Star maps stretched wide, marked with red scars, Federation colonies gone silent, supply lines cut. Jax recognized Proxima b, then Kepler 442, then others. 17 in total. Dr. Keithmose's voice drifted from one display, relayed from her lab across the galaxy. "The metal fragments are active programmable matter. Adaptive, communicative, they're not relics, they're tools, and they're still in use." Jax's gut clenched. He had seen those fragments in her lab, heard her whisper that they felt wrong. Now he knew why. Fleetmaster Rourke turned to Chen. "They think we're myths. They laugh at the word human. Good, let them. It makes the blade sharper when it falls." Chen's eyes hardened. "We are not here to revel in their fear. We are here to teach them why peace without strength is a lie, why safety without vigilance is a dream that ends in fire." She gestured to Jax, "And he will show them." Jax blinked. "Me." "You lived among them," Chen said. "You earned their trust without them even knowing what you are. You've seen how they think, how they move, how blind they've become. You know the one truth they refuse to face." Her gray eyes burned into his. "That peace is never free." Far across the void, the Federation reeled. In the council chambers of 12 worlds, Director Calix Var's face filled the hollows. His voice thundered. "You saw him, a human hidden among us. Proof that the ancient legends live. They are here to infiltrate, to corrupt, to conquer. We must strike first or be destroyed." Ambassador Velter's crystal skin flushed frantic orange. "But they haven't attacked our fleets. Only colonies and no bodies were found." Calix cut him off. "And what does that tell you? They don't just kill, they take. Do you want your children harvested by predators who worship war?" Murmurs of fear spread like fire. The insectoid hive speakers hissed. The molten worlders glowed red with unease. The gas beings flickered like storm clouds. Admiral Zexithur arose, voice sharp. "Director Var, fear will not save us. Show strength, yes, but do not blind yourselves. These humans are not myths. They are real, and they are far stronger than we are ready to admit." Calix's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Exactly why I will lead the defense. Give me command, and I will make the galaxy safe again." The council wavered. Fear was louder than reason. And far away, hidden in the Sol sector, the Vanguard's engines roared to life. Jack stood on the deck of a warship built from exile and pain, staring at the fleet that was his birthright. The Federation he had called home for years now painted him as a monster. And somewhere, Deadl would be watching, her golden laughter drowned in terror. Chen's hand fell heavy on his shoulder. You asked why now, look out there, you'll see the answer soon enough. The stars ahead began to bend, warped by gravity wells too large to belong to planets. Shadows the size of cities emerged, blotting the light. Not Federation ships, something older, something worse. The Vanguard's alarms howled. Rourke's voice thundered across the hall. Contact, multiple hostiles, not Federation, not ours. Jax's blood ran cold. Chen's voice was iron, then it begins. The alarms had teeth. They didn't sing like Federation warnings, polite chimes, flashing indicators meant to calm. No, the Vanguard's alarms growled and howled like predators, their sound designed to drive adrenaline through veins and clear hesitation from minds. On the command deck, holograms bloomed. The stars warped as something massive pressed into real space. Black outlines took shape, hulking silhouettes, larger than any Federation dreadnought. Their hulls crawled with shifting glyphs that glowed like wounds. Contact confirmed, Myra called. Her voice was tight but steady. Size class gods I don't even know, 3 kilometers and climbing. Fleetmaster Rourke leaned forward, knuckles white on the railing. Not Federation. Not human, Chen finished grimly. The main display stabilized, and the deck fell silent. The intruders were shaped like leviathans, all curves and plates that rippled as though grown, not forged. Their hulls shimmered with colors that bent the eye wrong, as though each angle existed in more than one place. Biotech, Jax breathed, ships grown like bone. Myra muttered a curse, never seen anything like it. Chen's jaw tightened, we have once long ago. The deck hushed, Chen's voice was low but carried across the hall. The Mort. The name fell like ash. The Federation thinks they are myths, Chen said. They think humans invented monsters to justify our wars, but the Mer were real. They lived on conquest. They stripped planets bare, fed their fleets with what they consumed. We fought them at the edge of the galactic rim, and we drove them back. Her gaze cut across the deck. But no one believed us. The Federation told itself the Mer never existed, that only humans would imagine such horrors. And now they've come back, Rourke growled. The Mer Leviathans drifted closer. The nearest split open along its flanks, an awful, silent wound. Things spilled out, smaller craft, sharp, fast, glistening with wet sheen. They moved like swarms of hunting insects. Jax's pulse thundered. What do we do? Chen's eyes locked on him. What humans always do when shadows come, we fight. The launch bay roared with energy. Pilots sprinted to their craft, sleek, angular strike fighters built for agility. Their wings bristled with kinetic cannons, rail-mounted like old weapons reborn. Jax stood at the foot of one, his breath ragged. The fighter's name gleamed on its flank in Terran standard, Wraith 9. Myra slammed a flight helmet into his chest. You still remember how to ride a storm. He stared at the fighter, and the fighter stared back, a beast waiting for its rider. His fingers traced the cold hull. Memories surged, burning skis, screaming engines, the taste of copper and smoke. I remember, he said. Myra's smile was sharp, wolfish. Then let's remind the galaxy. The hangar deck fell away. Wraith 9 screamed into the void, engines painting scars of fire. Jax's body sank into the seat as acceleration clawed at him. The cockpit canopy glowed with tactical overlays, more swarm vectors, weapon arcs, targeting solutions. But Jax didn't wait for the computers. He felt the rhythm in his bones, the way predators always moved before they struck. Wraith 9, you're off formation, a voice snapped in his ear. Formation doesn't kill the enemy, Jax growled and threw the fighter into a corkscrew dive. The first swarm hit. Mercraft darted like knives, their hulls wet with sick light. Jax's cannons thundered, solid tungsten slugs accelerated past plasma shields. The first Mer split apart in a blossom of shards and ichor. Contact, multiple kills, Myra shouted from her own fighter alongside him. The swarm turned on them. Jax pulled the stick hard, flipping the fighter on its side, letting instinct guide him where the sensors faltered. Mer beams lanced past, searing the black, close enough to scorch the paint. He felt alive in a way that hurt. Don't chase, cut the line, Myra barked. He saw it then. The swarm wasn't random. It was herding the Vanguard into a trap, pushing the fleet toward the Leviathan's waiting jaws. Chen, Jax called. They're trying to pin us. Confirmed, Chen's voice answered, calm even in chaos. Rourke counterstrike pattern Gamma. The vanguard shifted. Carriers bled fighters into space, cruisers rotated and opened fire. Not with plasma, not with beams, but with mass drivers that hurled death faster than thought. For centuries, the Federation had laughed at kinetic weapons. Primitive, they said. Obsolete. But against merbiotech hulls, energy beams only spread across the living tissue like sunlight on water. Tungsten slugs, however, tore holes the size of houses. The void filled with fire. Jax twisted Wraith 9 through the chaos. He punched through a cluster of swarm craft, barrel-rolled between their fire, and lanced them with a burst that shattered 3 at once. The hull vibrated with the impact. He grit his teeth, writing it like an old song. Then his sensors screamed. One of the Leviathans loomed ahead, its flanks glowing with pulsing red light. A mouth, an actual mouth, opened big enough to swallow a cruiser whole. Inside, plasma churned like the heart of a star. "It's going to fire," Myra yelled. The Leviathan spat. A beam of searing energy tore across space, carving a Vanguard destroyer in half. Human voices screamed in Jax's headset, then went silent. Jax's knuckles went white on the stick. "We can't match that." "No," Chen said, voice steel over the comm. "But we can outthink it, cut its nerves, target the nodes along its flanks. Jax, lead the strike." The blood pounded in his ears. Him lead. "On you, Armitage," Myra said, her fighter sliding into formation with his. "Like old times." He swallowed hard. The Leviathan filled the viewport, a mountain of living armor. He lined up the glowing nodes one by one and pushed the throttle to the stops. "Follow me," he snarled. Wraith 9 dove straight at the monster's mouth. The void became a tunnel of fire. Swarm craft clawed at him, beams scythed across his path. His shields screamed, his hull scorched. But Wraith 9 held together. Tungsten slugs spat from the cannons, slamming into the glowing nodes along the Leviathan's flank. One shattered, then another. The Leviathan writhed, its beam faltering. "Almost there," Myra shouted. A swarm clipped Jax's tail. Wraith 9 spun into a violent roll. His teeth clacked together. Warning klaxons screamed. The Leviathan's mouth glowed again. A second beam charged. Jax grit his teeth. "Not today." He cut power to his shields, rerouted every drop into his cannons. The slugs tore through the last node just as the Leviathan fired. The beast convulsed. Its beam sputtered and died. Then the entire flank blew outward in a geyser of light and gore. The Leviathan howled without sound, its body splitting open. "Direct hit," Myra cried. The monster cracked apart, drifting into ruin. The swarm scattered, their formation broken. The Vanguard roared in triumph. But the triumph lasted only seconds. Because behind the dying Leviathan, more shadows emerged. Not one, not two, dozens, each larger than the last. The void filled with them, glowing glyphs pulsing like veins. Fleetmaster Rourke's voice was grim. That was the scout force. Chen's hand closed into a fist. "Then the war we fled has come again." On Jax's console, a message blinked. Not from Chen, not from Rourke, from Federation channels. The sender, Deadl. Her words burned across his screen. "Jax, I know now you're human. Tell me it isn't true. Please tell me." Jax's throat closed. Outside, the Leviathans advanced. Humanity's exile was over. The wreckage of the first Leviathan drifted in ruin, spilling bioluminescent entrails into the void. For a heartbeat, the Vanguard's fighters cheered across comms, voices raw with the shock of survival. But the cheers died as the sensor feeds stretched farther. One Leviathan destroyed, dozens more advancing. Their glyph-covered hulls rippled with grotesque light, each one a living engine of war. Fleetmaster Rourke's voice ground through the comms. "That was a taste. The main host is coming." Admiral Chen stood on the command deck, arms crossed, jaw set. "Signal the fleet. Fall back to Rendezvous Point Delta. We don't bleed ourselves dry on their terms." Jax sat in Wraith 9's cockpit, chest heaving, sweat dripping inside his helmet. His screen pulsed with an unopened message. The sender's name made his stomach twist. "Deadl. Jax, I know now you're human. Tell me it isn't true. Please tell me." His thumb hovered over the reply key. Myra's voice broke the silence. "You gonna open it?" He flinched. "You see my comms now." "Your hands are shaking," she said quietly. I've flown with you long enough, I know what that means. Jax's throat was dry. He forced the words out. She's Zapirian. She trusted me, trusted a lie, and now she thinks I'm the monster they told stories about. Then tell her different, Myra's tone sharpened, because if you don't, Kalex Var will do it for you. Jax stared at the blinking message, then killed the channel with a hard tap. Later, right now I fly. Coward, Myra muttered, but not unkindly. On Kepler's rest, panic spread like fire through oxygen. The emergency channels filled with overlapping voices, colonists demanding evacuation, traders screaming about raided routes, parents crying for their children. And through it all, Director Kalex Var's broadcast played again and again. Jax's human face, frozen in a stolen frame, labeled with one word, Predator. Inside the council chamber, 12 species argued in chaos. Ambassador Velter's skin pulsed frantic orange. We don't even know what they want. They take our colonists but leave them alive. That's not conquest, it's relocation. Captain the Zara's molten body glowed hot. And what then? Relocate them into what? Slavery? Experiments? My miners on Proxima are gone. If these humans are the ones behind it, they've already committed an act of war. Dr. Keithmose slammed her six-fingered hands onto the table. You're blind. The evidence from the Sol artifacts proves they've been fighting something else entirely. Those fragments came from battles with the Mur. You think the humans are attacking us. They're shielding us. Shielding us? Kalex's voice cut through the chamber, cold and cert. He rose from his seat like a man already enthroned. Look around you, Doctor. Do you see shields? I see terror. I see colonies gone dark. I see a mechanic hiding in plain sight, ready to sabotage us from within. This is what humanity does. They bring fear, and then they call it salvation. He turned to the council, mantle sweeping the floor. Give me command. I will rally the fleets. Together we will burn humanity out of the stars once and for all. Fear rippled through the chamber. Too many nodded. Too many wanted someone to blame. And in the back of the hall, Deadl sat frozen, her skin a swirl of gold and gray, the colors of confusion. She clutched her wristband, staring at the message she'd sent to Jax. No reply. Her heart whispered, he isn't what they say. Her mind whispered, but what if he is? In the Vanguard's war room, Chen studied the latest scans. Red warnings spread across the map like infection, Federation colonies along the rim, each one blinking with silence. They're still taking people, Myra said. Yes, Chen murmured, just like before, Protocol 7. Jax looked up. Protocol what? Evacuation doctrine, Chen said. When humans fought wars on multiple fronts, we learned to remove civilians before burning ground. We saved lives, but our enemies never understood. To them, it looked like kidnapping. To the Federation now, it looks the same. Jax's gut twisted. Deadl's people, Proxima B, they're not dead. Chen's gaze softened for the first time. No, they're alive, safer aboard our fleet than in Federation colonies that can't defend themselves. Then why not tell the truth? Jax snapped. Why let Var paint us as monsters? Rourke's voice thundered from the side. Because truth means nothing if they won't believe it. Fear is louder than fact. Jax slammed his fist into the table. Then I'll make them believe, not with speeches, with proof. Chen studied him for a long moment. The deck hummed underfoot with the steady pulse of humanity's last fleet. Finally, she nodded. You'll get your chance. The Mur didn't wait. They came like tide, dozens of leviathans, swarms thick as locusts. The Vanguard fell back in disciplined strikes, drawing the enemy away from core routes. But it wasn't enough. The map bled red faster than they could fight. And then a report arrived that snapped Jax's breath in half. Kepler's rest station, Deadl's home, the Council's jewel, under attack. Federation defenses collapsed in minutes. The Mur poured into orbit, glyph ships blotting out the stars. Chen's order cut through the fleet like a blade. Course to Kepler's rest. All squadrons prepare. If the Federation won't believe our words, we'll show them with our blood. Wraith 9's canopy sealed around Jax again. His hands curled over the stick, not shaking this time. He had flown to hide. Now he flew for something else. Myra's voice crackled in his ear. You ready to tell her yet? Jax swallowed hard. On his screen, Deadl's unanswered message still pulsed like a wound. He keyed a channel. His voice shook, but the words came. Deadl, it's true, I'm human, but I'm not here to conquer you. I'm here to keep you alive. If you don't believe me, look at the sky when we arrive. You'll know the truth by the fire. He cut the line before fear could choke him. The vanguard surged into jump formation. Engines flared, the stars bent. And Jax's heart hammered with one final thought. No more hiding. The jump spat the vanguard into real space, and the stars lit with fire. Kepler's rest hung in orbit above its blue gas giant, once serene, now a bleeding jewel. Leviathans coiled around the station like predators circling prey. Their glyph ships swarmed in endless black clouds, blotting out the orbital lanes. Every few seconds, a beam of sick light lashed out, tearing apart civilian transports too slow to flee. On the station itself, panic reigned. Sirens screamed. Families crowded evacuation bays. Soldiers, unused to war, fumbled with rifles they hadn't drawn in generations. And in the grand hall, Director Kalex Var stood tall before the council, using the chaos like a weapon. "You see," he thundered, "the humans lured this doom to us. They bring war in their wake, and now they arrive with their fleet. Watch how they strike. They will pretend to help, but they mean only to enslave us." Ambassador Velter's crystalline skin flickered yellow with fear. "And if you're wrong, if they truly fight the Mer?" Calex's eyes gleamed. "Then they only fight to prove themselves masters. Either way, Federation freedom dies today." Behind him, Deadl pressed a hand to her wristband, replaying Jax's message. "It's true, I'm human, but I'm not here to conquer you. I'm here to keep you alive." Her skin shimmered gold, gray, blue all at once. Confusion, hope, fear. The Vanguard fleet formed a wall of steel and fire. Carriers disgorged squadrons. Cruisers fired mass drivers that shook the void. Fighters streaked forward in hunting packs, tungsten slugs ripping into swarm craft. In Wraith 9, Jax felt the battlefield settle into his bones. Chaos for others, clarity for him. "On me, Myra, we cut a lane through the swarm. If the station's evacuation ships can't break orbit, they're dead." Myra's laugh was tight. "You pick the fun jobs." The swarm hit like knives in the dark. Mercraft darted living missiles with glowing veins. Jax threw Wraith 9 into a roll, his cannon spitting fire. 1, 2, 3 kills. He didn't need the targeting system. His instincts drew lines the computers couldn't see. "Evac lane is closing," Myra shouted. "I've got it," Jax snarled. He cut hard left, punching into the thickest swarm. Slugs tore through the void, clearing space just long enough for a convoy of civilian transports to dart past. From the bridge of Kepler's Rest, the Council watched in stunned silence as human ships bled and burned, carving gaps for civilians. Why would they do this?" Captain the Zara whispered, her molten eyes wide. Dr. Keithmose's voice trembled with fierce triumph. "Because it's what they've always done. Fight the monsters no one else dares face." But Kalex Var's mantle swirled as he turned, seizing the moment. "Don't be fooled. They clear lanes only to control them. Once you flee, who will hold your homes? Who will rule your worlds? Them." Fear rippled, doubt spread. Calex's words cut deeper than her beams. In orbit, the Mer pressed harder. A Leviathan uncoiled, its mouth splitting open, plasma charging deep inside. "Jax," Myra cried, "that thing's targeting the station." Kepler's Rest glowed in its sights. Hundreds of thousands aboard, Deadl among them. Jax's heart slammed against his ribs. "Not on my watch." He shoved Wraith 9 into a suicidal dive. Beams scythed past him, swarm craft clawing at his hull. Warnings screamed. Shields collapsed, but he kept going, eyes locked on the Leviathan's pulsing node. "Armitage, break off," Chen barked over comms. "That's an order." "Negative," Jax growled. "If that beam fires, the station's gone." Myra slid into formation beside him, defiant. "Then we both go." They weaved through swarm fire, their cannons hammering the Leviathan's flank. The first node cracked, then another. The beast writhed, its mouth faltering, but not fast enough. Jax's hull was burning, his console sparked. He keyed his comm, his voice raw. "Deadl, if you're watching, believe me now." He dumped everything, fuel, power, shields, into one final burst. Wraith 9 screamed like a dying star as it tore through the last node. The Leviathan convulsed, its beam misfiring into the void. The shockwave hurled Jax's fighter end over end. Alarms wailed, his canopy cracked, blackness pressed at the edge of his vision. "Jax," Myra screamed, "eject now." His fingers fumbled for the release. The last thing he saw was Kepler's Rest still alive, still whole. Then fire swallowed his cockpit. On the station, the council chamber shook as debris rattled the hull. The feed showed Wraith 9's suicidal dive, the Leviathan exploding in ruin. Ambassador Velter's skin flashed a stunned green. He saved us. Dr. Keithmose whispered, tears streaking her gray skin. A human just saved us. Tivel's skin glowed brilliant gold, the color of truth. She pressed her hand to her chest. But Calix Var slammed his hand onto the table. Don't be deceived. One act of desperation doesn't erase centuries of blood. They fight only to make you kneel in gratitude. That pilot didn't save us. He reminded us how dangerous they are. And in his voice, fear turned to power. Many listened, too many. In the void, Myra's voice broke with fury. Wraith 9, respond. Jax, damn you, answer me. But the comm stayed dead. Inside the shattered cockpit, Jax drifted in blackness, his suit alarms faint. His body was broken, his ship ruined. Yet his eyes flickered open long enough to see a shadow loom above, a massive human cruiser sliding into place, tractor beams reaching. Voices filled his comm, blurred and distant. Pilot down, secure him, get him aboard. As he slipped into darkness, one thought pulsed in his fatting mind. Peace was never enough. Darkness. It pressed against Jax like the weight of the ocean. Every breath hurt. His suit hissed weakly, bleeding life into broken lungs. Somewhere far away, voices crackled, familiar human voices. Hold him steady. Pulse weak but present. Get him to medbay now. Light pierced the dark. For a moment, Jax thought it was the end. Then he recognized the glow of a ship's medbay ceiling, the scent of antiseptic and metal. You're too stubborn to die, Armitage. Myra's voice. He turned his head, saw her sitting beside his cot, helmet off, hair damp with sweat. Her eyes were rimmed red. You did it, she whispered. You saved them. He tried to smile, but his cracked ribs made it hurt. Couldn't let you hog the glory. Before she could answer, the door hissed open. Admiral Chen entered, her gray eyes steady as iron. You nearly killed yourself, she said. Jax rasped, nearly. Chen's expression softened for half a heartbeat. Then she set a datapad on his chest. The Federation is in chaos. Calix Var paints us as conquerors, but your dive, they broadcast it across every channel. Half the galaxy saw you choose their lives over your own. Half, Jax asked. The other half listens to fear, Chen's tone sharpened, which is why your fight isn't over. On Kepler's rest, the council chamber burned with arguments. Ambassador Velter's skin flashed green, steady and resolute. The humans saved us. Without them, Kepler's rest would be ash, you saw it. Dr. Keithmose leaned forward, voice trembling with conviction. The artifacts, the fragments, all of it was proof of their war against the Mer. They were never predators. They were guardians. But Calix Var's voice cut like a blade. Guardians, look outside your windows. Their fleet bristles with weapons. Their fighters strike with ruthless precision. They claim to save us, but in truth, they expose us. The Mer would never have come here if not for them. Many representatives lowered their eyes, fear pulsing through the chamber. And then the chamber doors crashed open. Tivel stumbled inside, her skin blazing gold, the Zephyrian color of truth. Her voice rang through the hall. You're wrong. All eyes turned. I know one of them, a human. Her voice trembled but grew stronger. He lived among us. He worked as a mechanic. He fixed air pumps, patched broken pipes, helped children when the vents froze. He never raised a weapon, never asked for power. And when the Mer came for us, he gave his life to protect us. Not as a conqueror, as a friend. The chamber froze. Calix sneered. A single act does not redeem a monster. Tivel's skin flared brighter, defiant. No, a single act reveals what he always was. Silence held, the weight of her words pressed into every heart. In orbit, the battle worsened. More Leviathans warped into real space, their glyphs burning brighter. Even the vanguard strained against the tide. Fleetmaster Rurk slammed a fist on the command rail. We can't hold, there are too many. Chen's eyes hardened. Then we show them why humanity survived when others fell. Prepare the lance. Rurk's face went pale. Admiral, the lance was never tested. Chen's voice was stone. It doesn't need testing, it needs firing. On the flagship's dorsal spine, panels slid open. A cannon unfolded, longer than the ship itself, glowing with a light that was not plasma, not laser, but something stranger. a weapon born of programmable matter cannibalized from centuries of war. Energy bled across the fleet, ships linking their cores into one vast circuit. The cannon charged, humming with power that made the void tremble. Jack, strapped into a medbed, heard the vibration through the walls. He forced himself upright, pain screaming through every bone. "Chen, what are you doing?" She met his gaze through the calm. "Ending this." The Leviathans sensed the threat. They swarmed, glyph ships diving in suicidal arcs to tear the weapon apart. Vanguard fighters flung themselves into the path, buying seconds with their lives. The lance screamed and fired. A beam of pure adaptive energy tore across the void. It didn't just burn, it rewrote. The Leviathans caught in its path convulsed, their living hulls unraveling into dust. 3 Titans died in one blinding instant, their corpses drifting like broken gods. The Federation Council chambers shook as the light flared across every viewport. For the first time in 6 centuries, they witnessed war not as myth, but as survival. Ambassador Velter whispered, "By the stars." Dr. Keithmose's voice trembled. That is why they lived when others didn't." Kalex Var's face twisted in fury. "Can't you see? That is power no one should wield." But the Council's eyes were not on him. They were on the human fleet, standing between them and extinction. The Mer faltered. What remained of their swarm recoiled, retreating into the dark. The battle was not victory, it was reprieve. Humanity had bought the galaxy time. On the Vanguard flagship, Admiral Chen stood tall, voice calm but sharp. "Transmit to all channels." The comms blinked open. Every world, every ship, every council chamber heard her words. "We are humanity. We were forgotten, we were feared, but we did not vanish. We endured in the dark and we learned. Now them a return and only strength will stop them. If you choose peace without defense, you choose death. If you choose fear, you choose slavery to those who prey on it. But if you stand with us, you choose survival." Her voice dropped heavy with promise. "The choice is yours, but know this, we will fight with or without you." Silence spread across the galaxy. Then in the Grand Hall, Deadl rose once more. Her skin burned gold. "I choose them." Ambassador Velter's hands trembled, then lifted. "The Zapirian Collective chooses them." One by one, voices followed. The molten worlds, the crystalline hierarchs, even the hive speakers, not all, not yet, but enough. And for the first time in 6 centuries, the Federation whispered not of trade, but of war. Later, Jack sat in the infirmary, battered but alive. The medbay window showed human patrol ships moving in tight arcs, their shadows watchful. Myra leaned against the wall, arms crossed, grinning faintly. "You realize," she said, "you've just become the face of humanity for half the galaxy." Jax groaned. "I was happier fixing pumps." The door hissed open. Deadl entered, her skin glowing soft gold. She hesitated, then stepped closer. "You didn't lie," she whispered. "Not when it mattered." Jax met her eyes, guilt heavy in his chest. "I should have told you." "You told me when it counted," she said simply. Then, after a pause, "I believe you." Her hand brushed his, light as starlight. For the first time in years, Jax felt the weight of hiding lift. Outside, the human fleet held its vigil. The Mer had retreated, but they would return. And when they did, they would find a galaxy no longer blind. Peace had been a dream, but survival was truth. And humanity was ready to teach that truth again.